Hello everybody. Today we're going to be talking about negative reinforcement. By the end of this presentation, you should be able to define negative reinforcement, give examples of negative reinforcement, and identify negative reinforcement in scenarios. So what is reinforcement? In the last PowerPoint, I talked about positive reinforcement. Today we'll be discussing negative reinforcement. So just like positive reinforcement, reinforcement is when something increases the likelihood of a behavior to occur again in the future. The two types of reinforcement are positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. Again, today we'll be focusing on negative reinforcement. So negative reinforcement is when something is taken away from a person or situation which results in an increase in behavior. So remember, when you see the word negative, do not think of it in terms of being good or bad. Think of it in a behavioral aspect. In this case, the word negative simply means that something is being removed or taken away. Some examples of negative reinforcement: having homework removed for completing homework on time for a whole week, assuming that homework completion increases. Another example is having a demand removed because of engaging in appropriate behavior, assuming that appropriate behavior increases. So again, both of these examples, there's something that's aversive that's being taken away, which increases behavior. So remember, sometimes we might accidentally reinforce unwanted behavior. I think I gave this example also in the PowerPoint about the positive reinforcement. So when you're looking at a behavior that's increasing or continuing over time, you have to analyze it to see, is something happening, is something negative being taken away, which is increasing the behavior, or is something positive being added, which is increasing the behavior. So again, we oftentimes have to play detective to see what's actually reinforcing that behavior. So let's look at some examples. Bath time, splash time. So let's say that every day when Johnny's mom goes to give him a bath, Johnny starts to splash her. When he splashes his mom, she immediately removes him from the bath, ending his bath time. What is happening? Johnny is being negatively reinforced for his splashing behavior. So when he splashes, the demand of taking a bath is removed, and now every time at bath time, he's going to keep splashing so that he doesn't have to take a bath anymore. So this would be an example of something that we would not want to do. This is when negative reinforcement is working against you. On the following pages here, I have a little helpful tool, which I showed you in the last PowerPoint. So now we have our positive reinforcement on the table, and now our negative reinforcement is going to be there as well. So the little plus means something is added, the minus means that something is taken away or removed, and then we're going to have two up arrows because that means the behavior is increasing, which means it's reinforcement. So there's the table. It might just help some people that are better at visualizing things. If this helps you, it'll be a good tool for you. So a review. So remember, to put it very simply, reinforcement increases behavior. Negative reinforcement is when something is taken away and the behavior increases. So let's do some practice scenarios identifying reinforcement. And you can always just pause the video if you want to take time to try to figure it out. Scenario number 1. So Mary is out to eat at a restaurant with her family. Mary starts to scream and cry. Mary gets to leave the restaurant. Now every time Mary goes out to eat, she screams and cries and the family has to leave. What is this an example of? Negative reinforcement. Why? Because Mary gets to leave, so something is being removed, and now she screams and cries every time they go out to eat, and her screaming and crying is being reinforced. So obviously maybe going out to eat isn't something that Mary particularly enjoys, so she's going to do something to get out of that situation. Again, that's another example of negative reinforcement working against you. You ask your son Elijah to clean his room. Elijah starts to throw his toys all over his room. You leave the room and do not make him clean his mess. Now every time you ask Elijah to clean his room, he starts to throw his toys. What is this an example of? Negative reinforcement. So the demand to clean his room is being taken away, and now every time he's asked to clean his room, he throws his toys. So again, this is another example of negative reinforcement working against you. Scenario number 3. Stan has been having a hard time turning in his homework. To try to get Stan to turn in his homework, his teacher told him that if he turned in his homework during the week, he would not have to do the weekend homework assignments. So now Stan turns his homework in every day. What is this an example of? Negative reinforcement. So when Stan turns his homework in during the week, the weekend assignments are removed, making it negative because something is being taken away from Stan. And then Stan's behavior of turning in his homework during the week has increased, so that behavior is being reinforced. So this would be an example of negative reinforcement working for you. I just put the little reminder in there again that negative does not mean that it's a bad thing. It just means that something is being taken away or removed from the person. And I do mention this in my blog post as well. We always want to try to be using positive reinforcement because, truthfully, it would be better if they're working for something and they're getting something that they want out of it instead of something being taken away. So always try to use the positive reinforcement instead of negative reinforcement. So like for that homework example that we just had, instead of maybe removing the homework assignments, maybe Stan gets something during the week every time he turns in his homework assignment. So if you can figure out a way to turn it into positive reinforcement, I always suggest to try to use positive reinforcement. So let's move on to the quiz. So quiz question number 1, and again, you can just pause the video if you want to go ahead and take the quiz to see how you do, and then we'll go over the answers too. So what are the 2 types of reinforcement? That would be positive and negative reinforcement. What is the effect of reinforcement on behavior? It increases behavior. What does the word negative mean in negative reinforcement? Something is taken away or removed. Thanks for watching.